It was 14 days ago the Southern Poverty Law Center published an expose of hundreds of emails of White House advisor Stephen Miller trafficking in the ugliest stereotypes of immigrants and white nationalist websites and themes. This is before he actually went to the White House. And that man is the president's chief advisor on immigration, who, according to NBC News reporting, has long believed that, for instance, asylum officers are soft. Under his direction, largely, the Trump administration is quietly succeeding in essentially choking off asylum as a feature of U.S. law. Here's just one example of how nuts things have gotten. The Trump administration has now worked out a deal with the Guatemalan government to relocate rejected asylum seekers to, get this, a remote spot in the middle of the Guatemalan jungle. This is just one aspect of a full spectrum policy undertaken by Trump that has effectively destroyed the right to asylum in the United States in 2019. And here with me now to talk about that policy change, BuzzFeed immigration reporter Hamid Ali-Aziz. Hamid, you've been doing incredible reporting on this, and there's a bunch of different ways the Trump administration has essentially, is it fair to say, like, choked off asylum on the southern border?
I mean, essentially, at the end of the day, they've implemented a series of policies to restrict asylum at the southern border. This latest effort, like you mentioned, sending asylum seekers from El Salvador and Honduras to Guatemala is just the latest unprecedented step.
So, as I understand it, a huge part of this are working out these deals with other countries that migrants might get to before they get to the U.S. First Mexico, and then Guatemala and Honduras, that basically has migrants not allowed to traverse further and stay where they are. Talk to me about how they've gone about doing that.
So this is really an effort by the former DHS Secretary Kevin McAleenan. He took a lot of time traveling to these Central American countries, working out these deals with Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. And the first deal to actually be implemented is Guatemala. They're starting off with small numbers, only in El Paso, but all asylum officers have to be trained on this policy by today. So we could expect an expansion pretty quickly here. And this is paired up with other major policies that have been instituted as well.
And they have to be trained. So what is the new policy? What does it mean? How does it work?
So adult asylum seekers from El Salvador and Honduras will be basically told right now only in El Paso. They will be flown to Guatemala to obtain protections there. The only way they can avoid that is if they affirmatively say that they fear for their lives in Guatemala, and at that point, they have to meet this pretty high threshold to avoid being sent to Guatemala.
Wait a second. I just want to make sure I'm tracking this.
Yeah.
Desperate people who have traveled from Honduras and El Salvador, who have come and they've made it to the U.S. They're now in El Paso, where this is being piloted. They are going to be sent to the jungle of Guatemala, not back to where they're from, to a place they've never been, in the middle of the jungle in Guatemala, unless they could pass a bar in an asylum interview?
Right. They'll be sent back to Guatemala. Yes.
That's new and sort of nuts. I mean, these people are going to be deposited in the middle of the jungle of Guatemala. They're not from there.
Right. I mean, as far as the location in the jungle, I'm not quite sure is a specific location where they'll be sent. But yeah, I mean, this is completely unprecedented. I mean, this is a country where people are fleeing to America, and there's no requirement that they had to have actually traveled through Guatemala, according to the asylum officers who've been trained up on this policy.
There's also this hundreds of thousands remain in Mexico policy, right, which is people who are in this kind of limbo in Mexico. What are conditions like for these people that have essentially been sent back across the border to Mexico?
We've seen already reports of, the shelters in a really bad situation. The point where there was reporting late last week that families are telling their children to cross the border on their own to try to obtain asylum that way because of the desperation. I mean, these are situations where, the shelters have not been set up adequately according to, advocates on the ground. And there's been a lot of reports of crime, extortion, kidnappings.
It's a really crazy thing that's happening at the southern border. Hamid Ali-Aziz has been documenting really well. Thanks for sharing that great reporting with us.
Thank you so much.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.